Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be reading The Legend of the Dwarf. It's kind of like story time. But yeah, so this is kind of educational because they are real. If we're real, then they're real. If people think Santa Claus is real like I do, then these people are real. The dwarfs are real. It's a true fact. So let's go on. The Legend of the Dwarf, a story of the blah blah blah. So that's not part of it, but here we go. Many hundred years ago, there lived an old woman all alone in a tiny hut. She had no children and no one to ask after her. The old woman would weep night and day for a child, but of course with no result. One day she took an egg, wrapped it carefully in cotton cloth, and put it in the corner of her hut. Night and day the old woman looked after the egg in the hope that maybe it would give her a child, but nothing happened, and every day the old woman grew more and more unhappy. One morning, as she went to look at the egg, she found that it had broken, and in its shell sat the tiniest, loveliest baby boy that anyone could imagine. The baby saw the woman and smiled, and held out its tiny arms. The old woman was delighted. Here at last was the child she wanted for so long. The woman loved the child dearly, and looked after it so carefully and so well that by the time it was a year old, it could walk and talk as well as any grown-up. But for some strange reason, no one knows what, the baby stopped growing. He remained as tiny as a 1-year-old for the rest of his life. He began to be called the dwarf. The old woman did not care. She so loved the baby devotedly. "You will be a great king one day, my child," she told him, sure that the baby was destined for great things. One day the old woman said to the dwarf, "Go to the king's palace, my son, and challenge him to test his strength against yours." The dwarf protested. "How can I challenge the king, mother?" he said, horrified. "He is greater and much stronger than I." But the old woman insisted, and the dwarf was forced to do as she said. The king smiled at the child's challenge and asked him to lift a heavy stone. The dwarf went weeping to the old woman. "How can I lift that heavy stone?" he asked. "If I can lift it, so you can," said the old woman, and sent him back to the palace. And sure enough, the dwarf was able to lift the heavy stone. The king gave him many more tasks to do, but anything the king could do, the dwarf could do as well. When the king saw that this tiny little child could do whatever he himself could do, he was afraid and very angry. He decided to get rid of the child by asking him to do something impossible. "Build me a palace taller and higher and more magnificent than any in my city," the king commanded the dwarf. "You must do this in one night. If the palace is not ready by tomorrow morning, you will die." The king thought that the dwarf would never be able to fulfill his command, and so would lose his head. The dwarf was terribly frightened. He ran home to the old woman and wept. "How will I ever build a palace that high or that magnificent?" he cried. "I will surely die tomorrow." The old woman comforted the child and said, Go to sleep, my son. It will be done by the morning." The dwarf did as his mother said and went to sleep. The next morning he woke up in a beautiful palace, taller, higher, and more magnificent than any in the king's city. This is the palace that the ruins of which can still be seen in the city of Uxmal. When the king looked out of his window that morning, he saw the new palace towering up to the sky. He was amazed. "I must think of another way to get rid of him," he thought. The king then sent for the dwarf and asked him to collect two bundles of I don't know how to pronounce that, goal, I don't know, a sort of hard wood. With one bundle I shall strike you on the head, said the king to the dwarf, and if you survive you may strike me on the head with the other. Oh. The dwarf ran back to his mother, weeping and wailing. The king wants to kill me, he said. For how can I survive to blow on my head with a bundle of hard wood? The old woman told the child not to worry. She gave him 2 bundles of coguel and placing a tortilla on his head, sent him back to the king. The king had assembled all his ministers and the nobles of the court for what he hoped would be his triumph over the dwarf. He took his bundle of wood and hit the dwarf on his head with it. In fact, he hit the dwarf so hard that the bundle of hard wood splintered into 100 pieces, but the dwarf stood unharmed. Now the king was frightened. He tried to get out of the contest, but the ministers and noblemen insisted he keep his end of the bargain. They insisted the dwarf hit the king with his bundle of wood. The dwarf did so, and at once the king died. The assembled nobles and ministers and the people of the city who had come to watch the contest declared the dwarf to be their new king. The old woman's wish had come true. Her little child was now a great king. After this, the old woman disappeared, but it is said that far away in a village of Maine, there is a deep well leading to an underground passage. In this passage, beside a river and shaded by a great tree, sits an old woman with a serpent by her side. She sells water but accepts no money. But be careful before you buy her water, for she wants your babies in return, innocent children with which her serpent devours. This old woman is the dwarf's mother. And that is it. That is the end of the story. Tomorrow we will be doing another story time video. But this next story is going to be about something more likely people will probably never ever believe. Probably not, but I doubt they will believe. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I am currently uploading another video unless it's already done uploading. It's an LPS video. I was bored, so I was like, hey, might as well make a video, all that crap. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more stories, and do the notification bell for, and give this video a big thumbs up and comment down below. If you want me to do any challenge, I will not accept 3am challenges because those suck. I will not accept 1-person hide and seek with the creepy doll. Those are so weird. And yeah, those are the only 2. So I hope you guys like this video. I'll see you guys on another video tomorrow.